tried to provoke you and failed every time, because the calmer you are, the more dangerous you become. Picture this. You are standing in a crowded room. Maybe it is your office or a family gathering, and someone throws a sharp, stinging insult directly at you. Your heart rate spikes, your face flushes hot, and your brain screams for a comeback. You want to strike back, to defend your honor, to show them they cannot walk all over you. Society tells us that fighting back is strength, that whoever shouts the loudest wins the argument. But here is the brutal truth that ancient Stoic philosophers knew thousands of years ago: the moment you lose your temper, you have handed your leash to your enemy. You are no longer the master of your own soul. You are a puppet dancing to the tune of their disrespect. When someone insults you, they only want one thing: your reaction. The moment you get defensive, they win. They want to see you sweat. They want to pull you down into their own emotional chaos. If you react with anger, you think you are defending your ego, but in reality, you are lowering your power and surrendering your inner peace. Stoicism teaches us that your mind is your fortress. An insult, no matter how sharp, is just a vibration of air, a tiny pebble tossed at your walls. It has no power to damage the fortress unless you swing the gates open in anger and invite the chaos inside. Think about it. Why would you give the keys to your mental peace to a coworker you do not even respect, or a stranger on the internet by getting angry? You are essentially telling them that they control your mood today. But the truly powerful person, the one who operates with quiet, terrifying composure, understands the Stoic paradox. True strength is not the ability to crush your enemies with words, but the ability to remain completely indifferent to their attempts to crush you. When you master the art of the tactical pause and refuse to engage, you flip the script entirely. You become untouchable. The person trying to provoke you is left looking foolish, fighting a battle by themselves, while you stand there unaffected, observing them like a curious scientist watching a toddler throw a tantrum. In the next few minutes, you will discover how to build this psychological armor, using the ancient martial arts of Stoic philosophy to disarm any insult, neutralize any toxic person, and walk away from every conflict with your dignity and authority completely intact, proving that the strongest person in any room is never the loudest, but the one who simply refuses to be moved. Let us look closer at the person who just threw that insult at you and ask why they did it. Take a step back and think about the most successful, content, and peaceful people you know. Happy and fulfilled individuals do not spend their time and energy trying to tear other people down. It is a psychological fact that an insult is rarely a statement about your character. Instead, it is a loud confession regarding the speaker's own confusion and pain. When someone directs a toxic or mocking comment your way, they are not actually talking about you at all. They are holding up what ancient philosophers would call the false mirror. In that heated moment, you might think this mirror reflects your flaws, your incompetence, or your hidden insecurities, but it absolutely does not. It reflects their own internal chaos, their deep-seated fears, and their unresolved inadequacies. Imagine a stranger walking up to you on the street and trying to hand you a heavy and filthy bag full of toxic waste. Would you willingly reach out, take it from their hands, and carry it around with you all day? Of course you would not. An insult is exactly that. It is a toxic gift offered by someone who cannot handle the weight of their own emotional turmoil. They feel incredibly small, and the only way they know how to feel big is by trying to stand on your shoulders. When they attack your intelligence, your career, or your lifestyle, they are desperately trying to offload their own anxiety onto you. If you get defensive, If you argue back, or if you show that you are hurt, you are reaching out and accepting their toxic waste. You are validating their false reality and letting their sickness infect your mind. But if you stand completely still, if you look at them with absolute and quiet indifference, you force them to hold on to their own poison. You completely refuse the delivery. Why in the world should you allow a miserable and insecure person to dictate your emotional state for even 1 minute? When a toddler calls you a silly name, you do not feel deeply insulted because you know they do not truly understand what they are saying. You must train yourself to view an angry and provoking adult in the exact same way. They are emotionally stunted and governed by malice and insecurity. Their opinions carry absolutely zero weight in the grand architecture of your life. The next time someone tries to belittle you, picture that false mirror reflecting their own brokenness right back at them. You do not need to defend yourself against a mere projection. You do not need to prove your worth to someone who has no capacity or authority to measure it. By simply refusing to take their baggage, you strip them of their only weapon, leaving them completely alone in their chaos while you remain entirely untouched and safely guarding the fortress of your own mind. Now that you know how to refuse their toxic delivery, let us advance to the next level of Stoic defense. Think of it as psychological judo. In traditional martial arts, a skilled fighter does not try to stop a heavier, charging opponent by meeting force with brute force. That would be exhausting and ultimately foolish. Instead, they step aside smoothly and use the attacker's own aggressive momentum to throw them entirely off balance. You can do the exact same thing in a verbal confrontation. When that coworker or critical relative hurls their insult at you, your biological instinct screams at you to build a wall of defense, to loudly explain why they are completely wrong, or to launch an immediate counterattack. Do not do it. Instead, lean into their attack and let them fall flat on their own face. The most devastating and elegant way to execute this psychological move is by using 4 simple words: interesting. Tell me more. Imagine the scene once again. They have just delivered a cutting remark about your intelligence, your career, or your life choices, fully expecting you to flush with anger or scramble for a defensive excuse. Instead, you look them dead in the eye, offer a very slight, relaxed smile, and calmly say, "Interesting. Tell me more." In a fraction of a second, the entire power dynamic of the room radically shifts. You are no longer the wounded victim defending your fragile ego. You have suddenly become a calm scientist observing a highly peculiar specimen under a microscope. You have responded to their hostility with polite curiosity, and there is absolutely nothing more terrifying to a verbal bully than someone who is completely unafraid of their aggression. By actively inviting them to continue, you are forcing them to explain their irrational behavior out loud, because a personal insult is almost always based on pure emotion rather than factual logic. Asking for more details forces the attacker into a very uncomfortable corner. They wanted a quick hit and run, a flash of your anger to make them feel momentarily powerful. Now, they are standing there awkwardly, required to justify their pettiness in the cold and unforgiving light of day. Their own momentum carries them right over the edge. The ancient philosopher Epictetus taught that we should never be troubled by the meaningless echoes of ignorant people. When you reply with genuine interest rather than wrath, you prove that their hurtful words are just echoes, weightless vibrations in the air that cannot penetrate your mental fortress. You show the entire room that you place a much higher value on your own inner peace than on winning a petty and childish argument. The attacker is left stumbling over their own words, their weapon entirely neutralized. while you remain cool, collected, and completely in command of the situation. Sometimes you do not even need to use those 4 words because the most devastating weapon in your entire Stoic arsenal is absolute and unbroken silence. We call this the tactical pause. Let us return to that same tense room and that same confrontation. The aggressor has just fired their best verbal shot at your ego. Your biological instinct, forged by millions of years of human evolution, demands that you immediately fill the dead air with a loud and passionate defense. You feel an overwhelming urge to speak, to explain yourself, or to launch a counterattack to protect your reputation. Do not do it. Instead, you must stop completely. Count silently in your head. 1, 2, 3. While you are counting, maintain a completely relaxed posture and look them directly in the eyes with a calm and neutral expression. Do not cross your arms, do not frown, and do not glare. Just observe them as if you are studying a fascinating but harmless phenomenon. This deliberate silence is the most uncomfortable experience an aggressor can possibly face. When someone insults you, they are anticipating an immediate and emotional reaction. They expect a fiery argument or a hasty defensive retreat. By giving them absolutely nothing, you completely break the rhythm of their provocation. You create a psychological void, and human beings are naturally terrified of a void. In that heavy and stretching silence, the social pressure instantly transfers from your shoulders right back to theirs. Without speaking a single syllable, your steady gaze is asking them if that is all they have to say. They wanted to feel powerful and dominant, but by refusing to engage, you make them feel incredibly small and foolish, exposing the childish nature of their outburst to everyone else in the room. The ancient Stoic philosophers understood perfectly that this kind of silence is never a sign of weakness or submission. Instead, it is the ultimate display of quiet and supreme authority. It communicates clearly to the aggressor and the audience that their words are simply not worth the oxygen it would take for you to formulate a response. But you must remember that this is not a bitter, passive-aggressive, or pouting silence. It is a moment of active and internal assessment. During those few seconds of the tactical pause, you are calmly asking yourself if their critical statement is true or false. If what they said is true, then it is not an insult at all. It is merely constructive feedback that you can use to improve yourself. If what they said is false, it is a lie. And a lie is entirely the problem of the liar, not your problem. By utilizing the tactical pause, you prove that no one can force you into a battle without your explicit permission, keeping your mental fortress entirely secure and your dignity perfectly intact. If the tactical pause does not completely shut them down and they are still standing there waiting for you to defend your ego, it is time to deploy the second technique, which is a soft block we call the devastating agreement. Imagine the aggressor is now visibly frustrated by your absolute silence. They might double down, repeating their harsh critique or hurling another stinging insult at your intelligence, your career, or your life choices. Your biological instinct will once again scream at you to push back and fight for your honor. But you are going to do something completely unexpected. You are going to look at them calmly, offer a slight and relaxed nod, and say 4 simple words you might be right. On the surface, this might sound like you are surrendering or showing weakness, but in the realm of psychological warfare, it is a masterstroke of quiet and supreme authority. Fire desperately needs oxygen to burn, and in a verbal conflict, your defensiveness and your anger are the exact oxygen the aggressor is looking for. They are throwing a heavy and aggressive punch, fully expecting it to hit the solid brick wall of your ego. But when you calmly say that they might be right, you remove the wall entirely. You become just like water. Their punch lands on absolutely nothing, and their own aggressive momentum pulls them off balance and sends them stumbling forward into the void. By agreeing with the mere possibility of their statement, you are refusing to provide any friction whatsoever. You do not explain yourself. You do not justify your actions. And you absolutely do not apologize. You simply acknowledge their opinion as an opinion and nothing more. This specific response is profoundly terrifying to a toxic person because it demonstrates an unshakable level of internal self-confidence. Only a person who is completely secure in their own identity and their own reality can afford to casually agree with a direct insult. When you tell that critical coworker or that difficult relative that they might be right, the entire emotional dynamic of the room changes once again. They desperately wanted to see you flushed, embarrassed, and scrambling to prove your worth to them. Instead, they are met with a serene detachment that proves their words have zero power over your inner peace. The ancient Stoic philosophers knew perfectly well that you can never actually be insulted unless you actively consent to be insulted. By calmly saying you might be right, you are showing the entire world that your self-worth is not up for debate and that you have absolutely no interest in participating in their childish drama. You leave them holding their own toxic energy, looking completely confused and foolish, while you remain safely entrenched in your mental fortress, proving that the most devastating counterattack is often the absolute refusal to fight at all. But what happens after the confrontation ends? Sometimes you walk away from that tense room, and the insult follows you home. It echoes in your mind, and you find yourself replaying the scene over and over, wishing you had said something sharper. To prevent this, you must master the ultimate Stoic defense, a mental shift known as the view from above. When someone insults you, your world instantly shrinks down to that one heated moment, that one critical person, and that one stinging sentence. You become completely trapped in a microscopic drama. To escape this trap, you must deliberately zoom out your perspective. Imagine lifting your vision above that crowded room, looking down at the building, then the city, then the entire continent, and finally the earth spinning in the infinite vastness of space. When you look at the grand architecture of the universe, what is that insult? It is absolutely nothing. It is merely a tiny, weightless vibration of air hitting your eardrums. It has no mass, no substance, and no actual power to alter the fabric of your life. 10 minutes from now, that awkward moment will be over. A century from now, neither you nor the person who insulted you will even be a memory. Why in the world would you sacrifice your precious and limited energy for a momentary sound wave generated by an insecure mind when you widen your perspective? The authority of the person insulting you completely vanishes. They become a tiny speck making a tiny noise. Once you have zoomed out, you can take the final step, which is transforming the attack into an advantage. Instead of feeling like a victim of their cruelty, you must mentally reframe this toxic person as your personal sparring partner. When a boxer gets in the ring, they do not get offended when their sparring partner throws a heavy punch. They expect it, and they use it to build their reflexes, their speed, and their endurance. You must view the person who provokes you in the exact same way. They think they are dragging you down, but they are actually giving you a free opportunity to exercise the muscle of your patience and to test the strength of your psychological armor. If you never faced irrational or difficult people, you would never have the chance to practice true self-control. By shifting your mindset, You extract the poison from their words and convert it into fuel for your own personal growth. You stop seeing them as an enemy who has the power to harm you, and you start seeing them as a highly effective tool that is helping you become completely invincible. When you finally view these difficult individuals merely as sparring partners who are training your patience, the ultimate realization hits you. You suddenly understand that lowering yourself to their level to fight back is the greatest mistake you could possibly make. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote a profound truth in his personal journal that serves as the ultimate conclusion to this entire framework. He said that the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Think about the incredible power hidden within that single sentence. When someone insults you, they are being petty, emotional, and loud. If you respond with a stinging comeback, if you raise your voice, or if you try to hurt them back, you have just validated their behavior by mirroring it perfectly. You have become their exact twin in that moment. But the revenge of excellence requires you to do the exact opposite. If they are being loud and aggressive, you become quiet and composed. If they are being dishonest or cruel, you remain radically truthful and kind. By absolutely refusing to meet them at their chaotic level, you maintain the high ground and you prove their insulting words completely false without ever having to argue your case. Society constantly lies to us by telling us that if we do not fight back, we will be seen as weak or cowardly. We fear what the insult says about our social standing. But look closely at the people you truly admire and respect in the real world. The most powerful and influential people do not get into petty shouting matches. They operate with a quiet and terrifying composure. They do not have to tell you that they have authority because they show it by how little they are affected by the opinions of the common critic. True authority and ultimate power do not lie in the ability to crush your enemies with sharp words. True power is the ability to remain completely indifferent to their desperate attempts to crush you. The highest form of human freedom is reaching that beautiful point where your self-worth is rooted entirely in your own character, which you control, rather than in the praise or blame of other people, which you can never control. You must decide today that no one, regardless of their status or their volume, has the authority to change your mood without your explicit consent. When you lock the gates to your mental fortress and refuse to hand over the keys to anyone else, you become truly untouchable. The next time the world tries to provoke you, remember that your absolute calmness is your most devastating weapon, and simply walk away in total peace. Walking away in peace is the ultimate victory. But what exactly happens when you cannot physically escape the individual who is determined to drag you down? Imagine that you are dealing with a relentless coworker whose desk is just a few feet away from yours, or a difficult relative who sits directly across from you at the dinner table. You have maintained your absolute calm. You have successfully used the tactical pause, and you have refused to strike back. Yet they persistently continue their verbal assault. Your biological instinct will fiercely tempt you to finally snap, convincing you that you have been patient enough and that it is now time to loudly put them in their place. Do not fall into this final trap. Modern society constantly dictates that we must have the last word, that we must aggressively defend our honor, and that quietly shutting down a discussion is a sign of weakness or submission. But the Stoic mindset flips this logic entirely on its head. When an insecure person refuses to drop their childish drama, you must deploy the ultimate boundary-setting technique. You look them directly in the eyes, maintaining your quiet and terrifying composure, and you calmly state, "This conversation is no longer productive. Notice exactly what this specific phrase accomplishes. It does not hurl a counter-insult. It does not raise the emotional temperature of the room. And it does not offer them any friction to push against. It simply builds an invisible but impenetrable wall around your mental fortress. You are objectively acknowledging that the interaction has lost all rational value and has devolved into a mere ego-driven performance. By stating that the exchange is no longer productive, you take absolute control of the environment. You instantly stop the cycle of unnecessary repetition and you fiercely protect your precious energy. If they try to twist your words or accuse you of being a coward for refusing to fight, you must remember that engaging with irrationality is never a victory. You do not owe a lengthy explanation to someone who is entirely committed to misunderstanding you. Their hidden goal is to exhaust you, to pull you into their chaotic emotional storm until you are just as miserable as they are. When you clearly state that you are done engaging, you are sending a devastatingly powerful message to the aggressor. You are declaring that you control your own time, you control your own mind, and you control your own peace. You will not be dragged into the mud for their amusement. They are left awkwardly fighting a battle with themselves, completely exposed in their immaturity, while you preserve your dignity and focus your energy only on the things that truly matter. As you walk away from that unproductive conversation and leave the chaotic energy behind, you must realize that this is not just a tactic for dealing with difficult people, but a comprehensive philosophy for a truly free life. The ultimate goal of the Stoic mindset is not merely to win arguments or to silence your critics, but to achieve a level of psychological independence where you no longer need their approval in the first place. Think about the energy you used to waste worrying about what other people thought of you, replaying arguments in your head, and desperately seeking validation from individuals who do not even have their own lives in order. When you constantly react to every slight and every insult, you are essentially telling the world that your self-worth is fragile and constantly up for negotiation. But when you build your life on the solid foundation of your own character, your integrity, and your actions, you completely remove yourself from that toxic marketplace. You stop playing their game entirely. Ancient philosophers taught that the most profound and lasting revenge against those who try to bring you down is a life lived exceptionally well. When you focus your time and energy on building your skills, advancing your career, nurturing healthy relationships, and cultivating a peaceful mind, the petty insults of insecure people fade into irrelevant background noise. You become like a towering mountain, and their harsh words are nothing but a gentle breeze passing over the rocks. They simply cannot reach you anymore. This is the profound freedom that comes from recognizing the strict boundary between what you can control and what you cannot. You cannot control the opinions, the jealousy, or the spoken words of the people around you. You will inevitably encounter individuals who are bitter, arrogant, and determined to misunderstand you. But you possess absolute and unquestionable control over how much weight you give to their opinions. You are the sole gatekeeper of your mind. Every time you choose patience over anger, silence over shouting, and quiet indifference over emotional chaos, you reinforce the walls of your mental fortress. You prove to yourself and to the world that you are the absolute master of your own soul. The next time you step into a crowded room or face a challenging interaction, carry this unshakable confidence with you. Know that no one has the authority to diminish your value without your explicit permission. By refusing to engage with negativity and by remaining deeply anchored in your own quiet power, you walk through life completely untouchable, proving every single day that the calmest person in the room is undeniably the most powerful. The next time someone tries to project their internal insecurities onto you, Remember that your reaction is your ultimate power. You never have to accept their toxic gift. By choosing the tactical pause, acknowledging their words without ego, and maintaining the walls of your inner fortress, you transform a petty insult into a brilliant testament of your own unshakable strength. If this Stoic mindset brought you value today, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more philosophy that empowers your daily life. Drop a comment below sharing your favorite Stoic comeback, and until next time, stay calm, stay grounded, and stay completely untouchable. See you next video.